for science!
Here's a good question to ask. What do you do when you're waiting for your opponent to make their move? I hope it's something that's stimulating, because you may have to wait a total of 75 seconds before it's your turn again. Okay, let's drop the fact that that's a really long time to be sitting there on turn 1 wondering if your opponent went to make a sandwich, and let's see if there's a way to be a better Hearthstone player in the process. Now, I'll preface firstly that all of these tips involve your opponent being present, so if they're actually just sitting there on their butt BMing you with the countdown rope, there's not really anything that you can do besides maybe go into window mode and watch some YouTube videos. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the topic for today: card reading. There are several tells that your opponent will reveal on their turn, even without them doing anything. It can be very daunting sometimes to constantly assume that your opponent is holding that one card that will ruin your game, like an AoE spell or a removal spell. More importantly though, you can actually intuitively figure out general information about your opponent's hand simply by paying attention to what your opponent is not doing. It's like they say, no information can be a lot of information. The only issue here is that these tells, of course, happen as a result of you being incredibly vulnerable. And yet, Hearthstone is a game about weighing the odds, so sometimes you might have to put yourself in that position just to see if your opponent is using a certain strategy. For example, if you have a strong board with minions with less than 4 health on turn 7 against a mage, and the mage does not use Flame Strike, there's a high chance that they don't have it in their hand, which may provide you with necessary information to play more aggressively to end the game earlier. Be a little careful though, because some people may try and bait you into putting out more minions on the field. However, they would be giving up another turn of having a strong board. An opponent that aggressively trades their minions is also indicative of someone who isn't holding any AoE that they can use at a relative mana turn. Another key mechanic is to look for when your opponent waves their card around on the board. If you see a target arrow, you can assume that this card is a target spell or a battlecry minion, and depending on your opponent's class, and if you can identify which deck your opponent is playing, you may be able to guess which card or possibility of cards it is, helping you to plan out your subsequent moves accordingly. Also, your opponent can only hover a card over the board if it's within their current mana to play. And lastly, your opponent's cards will remain in the same order at all times until they play them. So, if you can remember which cards your opponent freely gave you information for, then you can actually use this information to make educated guesses on what cards your opponent has available. With this knowledge in mind, it's important to remember not to give away unnecessary information yourself to your opponent. Keep these mechanics in mind and you'll start to catch these elusive pieces of information on habit, which could be the difference between winning and losing a game. This is the science of card reading. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more. And if you haven't been reading your opponent's cards, start now.